is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions on any legal topic that you've been dealing with or you're worried about. Everything from car accidents to maybe you've got a family member in nursing home care and you're worried about that. Call in. You can be live on the air with us. The number is 256-536-0077. That way we can ask you some follow-up questions and it helps us more directly answer you. But you can also text us to that same number, and we've got text questions coming in right now. You can also email a question any day of the week on any legal topic. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out. We've got some of your email questions tonight. We've also got Will Leake here from Timberlake League and Brooks. Good to have you here.
All right, Sharon, we've almost made it to Monday.
Oh, we're nearly there. It's been a great weekend.
That's right.
You know, we're also celebrating 30 years of Law Call. 30 years on the air. Answering people's questions.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Got a little video taking us back to some of the earlier days of Will Leake.
Folks, again, are fussing. People are at their highest in terms of anger. It's usually an issue that's near and dear to their heart. And so when lawyers are involved, there is conflict, there is strife. And so, unfortunately, people identify, lawyers with conflict and just, that we thrive on folks not getting along. And unfortunately, that's what we're paid to do. When, I ask folks, when you're in need, and even my buddies who are on me about being an attorney, when they are in need, I'm the first one they call, and it's important to them.
Isn't that the truth?
Wow, 25 years ago.
Yeah. You look exactly the same.
Yeah, man, feeling it, not feeling it, not feeling it.
Talking about the law, lawyers are not the problems. Lawyers are not the one bringing the issues. Lawyers are the ones settling things. And you're right. When some family member or friend has a terrible situation, they call their lawyer friends.
Right. We just to comment on that, that kind of rings true today. If I hadn't heard from somebody in a long time, and all of a sudden my phone, they pop up on my phone. Hopefully it's okay. But a lot of times they're calling to say, hey, here's the issue. My son was down at school. Had so much to drink, he's got a DUI or something.
What do we do? What do we do?
What's happening? And hopefully you're not in that situation, but when your ox is in a ditch, you got to get it out. And you're right. Oftentimes our job, they call us counselors, and we're there to try and solve the problems and help you. Oftentimes it's with counseling. Oftentimes it's writing a letter, trying to negotiate and be reasonable. And sometimes it's filing the case and filing your complaint and going to court and seeking a remedy that way. So, hopefully you can get folks to agree, but if not, the courts are there to solve disputes. And Sharon, that's what makes us different. When you talk about, we talk about justice, and in America, we bleed for it, we go to war for it. When we talk about justice, we kind of sit up a little bit taller in our chair. It makes us different from a lot of places in other countries. And, it takes jurors coming in, giving up their time to have this system, to have this process, and for everyone to be able to seek justice. And that's really important. And, going back 25 years in that clip, the folks are on lawyers. But when you need them, you need them. And it's not as funny to make those lawyer jokes when they need us.
We respect the law, and the more you do, the more you practice law, the more important you realize it is.
Yeah, so it's, hopefully you don't need us, but the system is there. And imagine if it wasn't there. Imagine we didn't have this unbelievable justice system in the United States. And there's similar systems around the world, but it does make us special, and we do sit up taller in our chair when you think about what makes us special, what makes our system special. And that's the truth.
And the law keeps changing. Okay, there's a change with Governor Ivey's law about eluding police. What's changing with the law with this?
So last few weeks she signed in Bill SB 233. And basically what that is prior to, it'll be in effect October the 1st, 2026. And basically the law has been for a long time, if you run or elude the police, you can be charged with a Class A misdemeanor. And now, and then you don't want to encourage anybody to run, but a misdemeanor may not be a deterrent for some folks.
Right.
And if it's not, they're more likely to flee. And what happens then? They're speeding, they're out of control, they're putting innocent citizens at risk, they're putting their officers at risk, trying to chase down these clowns. And it's dangerous. And we work on these cases, and I've been looking at these cases for over 20 years. And yes, it's not the police that's arguably causing it, But there are policy and procedures in place to where if it's just a misdemeanor or it's not if there's not a kidnapped child in the back, is hot pursuit through a crowded area necessary? Arguably not. And if my baby is in between the police and a defendant fleeing from the police and it's just a misdemeanor and it's not a kidnapped child, yes, let them go, because it puts everyone at risk. Now, the one running is mostly culpable, and this law will make it a felony, a Class D felony, for fleeing the police. And it takes it from a year in jail to up to 5 years in jail. If you have children in the car or travel at excess rate of speed, there could be punishment enhancements, and there's mandatory jail time for repeat offenders. So it's a good law to hopefully protect the citizens of Alabama and have that person think twice before he or she runs from police, endangering themselves, and most importantly, our police officers and the citizens, of this state. And so it's a good step forward to try and give law enforcement another tool, to catch the bad guys and preclude them from running in the first place, and making everybody safe, because these cases are high speed. We've had fatalities, horrific injuries. It's no joke. And I've worked on these cases, and I have people say, man, you just encourage them to let them go? Well, yeah, if your baby's in between them, or mine is, you daggum right, I'm encouraging them to let them go. If it's nothing, if it's not, a gun situation or there's a kidnapped child, yes, because, you don't know who's out there and who they're going to hit and kill.
We've got callers waiting. We've got Gladys on the line with a question from Boaz. Hi, Gladys. Thanks for calling. Thanks for watching. What's your question tonight?
Yes, I have a vocal cord injury and cannot talk properly.
Okay. You sounded pretty
can hear
good
you.
tonight.
Well, it's just one of my vocal cords was cut in two.
Oh, my goodness. During a procedure and don't name any names or any hospital?
Apparently it was during a procedure for a trach that happened when I was in the hospital after COVID.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Does it still cause you pain, or it's limiting how your ability to talk?
It limits, and I can no longer do the type of work I've done all my life.
Oh wow, it's changed your whole lifestyle.
What's your question, Gladys?
Well, does the 2-year statute of limitations apply to every possible issue?
Well, there is a tolling provision. So I guess you're talking about medical malpractice, correct?
No, I'm talking about workers' compensation.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So medical malpractice is 2 years. I know you're talking about workers' comp. Medical malpractice is 2 years from the date of the injury, or it could be extended if you could not discover that within that time frame, or there's some sort of subterfuge or hidden issue. Now, workers' compensation, there is a 2-year statute of limitations from the date of your injury. However, it could be 2 years from the last payment of temporary total disability benefits. So remember, you get 3 things with workers' comp, and the system hadn't been changed in forever, over 20 years. But you get your medical bills paid if you go to an approved physician, and that's a big if, because there's many different ways that they can deny that treatment. 2/3 of your average weekly wage while you're off work with an approved doctor's permission. And then if you suffer a permanent impairment, then there is a formula basically that spits out of a book of what that injury is worth, and usually it's not very much. But the second issue is what's germane to your question. The statute of limitations can be tolled and extended from 2 years from the date that you received that last TTD, temporary total disability payment. So it's 2 years, but there is a tolling provision for that particular payment of TTT benefits.
Good luck with it, Gladys. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us.
which pays an advertising fee to this station.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, the Tennessee Valley's only live legal call-in show for 30 years and counting. Presented by the award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm Timberlake, League & Brooks, featuring the knowledge and experience of attorney Michael Timberlake, attorney Will League, attorney Heath Brooks, attorney William Meservey, attorney Bobby Marsh, and hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet. Your rights, your calls, live. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Doviet. Will Leagues here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. We got in a text question. You can call in, be live on the air, text in your questions. My son's about to get married. We own $8 to $10 million worth of property. What's the best way to protect him besides a prenup? Thank you very much for your question there.
Sharon, this is your world. Let me take a stab at it, and you correct me if I'm right.
Go for it.
So my thought is, if he obtains ownership and that's commingled, that's community property under Alabama. They don't want to be a prenup, so he cannot receive the property. And if he does receive the property in inheritance, then if it's commingled, then that could be attached and subject to, division by the court. Now,
Yeah,
Sharon,
be very careful with that.
do the judges, they'll look, say, hey, they've been married for this long, he just recently inherited these properties, he used it for their benefit. Will the judge split that 50-50, or do they typically look at those circumstances?
They're going to look at the circumstances. They're going to look at what has the value increased over this period of time. So if it's a short marriage and they've lived in this house and the value went up $100,000 during that time, the judge might be saying, okay, we're talking about splitting the $100,000 increase.
Right.
They're not going to be looking at splitting the whole thing. But it's dangerous you want to give it to your son, but I'm curious why they don't want to do the prenup, because that's a very good way to do it. You can talk about putting it into a trust. You can deal with estate planning lawyers to put it into a trust so he doesn't even own it yet, right? So maybe you hold off on even giving it to him, but you do want to be very careful with that, because marriage in Alabama, you can open yourself up to some very interesting things, okay?
And what is stats? Is half of them fail? What's the stat?
Yeah, about half. It's a little better than half now, but it's about half.
Yeah, well, you're smart trying to plan.
Yeah, they're thinking ahead. We've got Curtis on the line with a question from Decatur. Hi, Curtis. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
I got a rental, been in my house a few years, but he hadn't paid me no rent in 7 months. And I got a company want to buy it, and they already got the contract up, want to pay me, but I can't get him out the house. And I went to had him eviction.
Okay.
And paid the money and everything, and it's been 15 days, and I want to know what the next step I can do to get him out my house, because I can't, the people don't want to buy the house with him in it, and he done messed my, so we done had to move the closing date 2 or 3 times.
It sounds like, you've already gone to court and gotten the judgment of the eviction process?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He done got the letter. But I got a letter from him today at my son saying he, that said some things were wrong with the house. But that's another thing. He done tore the house up, and I want to get him out of it.
Right, I
get him
hear
out
you.
before he tear it out of the works.
Well, now, if you have the eviction process, you have the order, you have the judgment, then you look at, that's the judicial branch. Then you go to the executive branch to enforce it, all right? So go to your local sheriff's department and say, hey, here's my order. I'd like to set an appointment for a forcible eviction. And because you have that order, then you have the power for the police, the sheriff's department to enforce that eviction. And so I would go down and make an appointment with them and say, hey, here's my judgment. I need this enforced. And look up, there's some procedures that sounds like you've been through most of them and you're close to the end. So hopefully they'll go and help you. Well, they will evict. You don't go do it yourself, because that's for the executive branch, that's for the police.
Yeah. I would think that your eviction lawyer would be telling you, okay, here's the deadline, and when we cross that path, that's when you're going to contact the sheriff's department, or they may help you do it. We've got William on the line with a question from Decatur. Hi, William. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hello?
Hey, William.
William.
Yes.
What's your question tonight? Thanks for calling in.
I need to ask.
Yes, sir?
Looks like we just lost
I
him.
think so.
Okay, so they're telling us the question was he had a roof issue, his insurance will not replace it. Okay, first look at your insurance policy. First thing, I know it's like reading the dadgum directions on a prescription bottle. However, you got to go in there and find out what they cover and what they don't. Recently, we've been handling a lot of hail damage claims to where, I think it was in May, we had that hailstorm, a lot of roofs to be replaced, but a lot of denials as well. So they'll come out, send an adjuster, make an assessment as to whether or not they feel like the damage is coverable under your particular policy. If they say it's not and you still think it is, you can get your own expert to come out, do your evaluation, and then see if is it a replacement issue or is it a total roof that needs to be replaced. And a lot of times it's a battle of the experts, but insurance companies, either they agree or you got to fuss with them and then file a lawsuit. And so, but you need your ducks in a row, your own expert testimony, your own expert opinion, to then put your position forward to the court. Their expert will come in, and there'll be a battle of the experts to see whether or not, in fact, you did have roof damage and what's the nature of the repair, replacement or just a repair.
Got in a text question. What's the penalty for driving without insurance?
Okay.
Yeah, it's the law, right? You're supposed to have insurance.
It is.
And yet a huge percentage still don't.
Almost 1/3.
Really?
And so we see a lot of wrecks where they just didn't have coverage.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but the penalties can be stiff, all right? So your vehicle registration can be suspended. You got to go through reinstatement fees. You've got 1,000, 5,000 to 1,000 of fines. You may have to file an SR-22 form for the next 3 years, which is penalty provision. And you could look at jail time up to 3 months and 6 months for a repeat offender. Now, we're not seeing jail time, but that is on the cards. And we'll see an influx of officers writing tickets for failure to have liability insurance. And sometimes you go and say, hey, I just forgot my card that day, I didn't have it. And you can prove to the court that you had it. Oftentimes they'll waive that ticket. But if you don't have it, then those penalties can apply and they get expensive. Your car's not registered, you're driving without registration, and then you get pulled over again. And it gets serious. Yeah. It sure does.
Text question in dental implants gone wrong. What kind of lawyer do you go to? Is that a medical malpractice case?
It can be.
Dental?
It can be. So that's a skill that you would have to have an expert come in and testify. And so under the Medical Liability Act in Alabama, you have to have a similarly situated physician to review either the records or the patient, review and then form an opinion on the past treatment rendered by whichever doctor or dentist provided the treatment. And if it breaches the standard of care, then that falls within the scope of the Alabama the Alabama Medical Liability Act. And so oftentimes, these cases go to trial because the doctor has the ability to either approve. Some insurance policies allow the doctor to approve or disapprove of any type of resolution. And so the reputation and things are on the line. So often those cases try, and they're difficult. But, there's an economic side to it.
Okay.
You could spend, let's say these dentures are $2,500.
Yeah.
And you spend $10,000, $20,000 on an expert. The other side spends money on an expert. You win the case, but you just get your $2,500. So unfortunately, there's an economic side to where it's just not financially beneficial to pursue those actions. I don't like giving out that legal advice, but you want to be straight with folks that, you'd win, but you'd get $1. And so is it worth going through the time, effort? It might. I just don't know what the injuries are. But oftentimes those cases fall in the realm that would cost more to prosecute than the case would be ultimately worth. And that's difficult for plaintiffs to hear because they've been wronged in some way. And we talked about justice at the beginning of the show. And that's not justice. It's an expensive process, but it's not a unflawed system.
Got in a text question from viewer Carolyn. Carolyn says she watches every week. Thank you, Carolyn.
Right.
She says, if someone built a garage on 25 feet of your land around 14 years ago, and you're just now getting your land surveyed, what can you do? Are we past the point of no return, maybe?
I don't think so. That seems like a long time. But again, adverse possession. Let's go back to law school, right? So if we're neighbors, I put my fence on your property, pay taxes on the property, and I'm open and obvious for 20 or so years, I think it was. then it becomes my property, which is kind of weird. But that's what adverse possession says. However, if it's not open and obvious, you didn't know about it, the other person wasn't paying taxes, I believe you would be able to remedy that situation by saying, hey, they're on my property, they're trespassing, and thereby, you know, you could get your damages or the boundary line or have them take their fence out or whatever the issue was. There may be a statute of limitations issue, but I don't think you can just come on. I don't think 14 years is going to do it. Now, we're going to have to check the books on that one, but that's my bet on LawCall at 10:45 on a Sunday night.
It's a good reminder for everybody. You want to be good friends with your neighbors. You want to be friendly. But if they start to build something, it may be time to speak up and spend the money and just double check before we go too far.
It usually comes out with a survey and put them on notice, and hopefully you can work it out. But you know, there are courts.
We got an email question in from TJ. TJ says, what's a reasonable amount of time I should expect to have to wait for an injury claim to get resolved? It's a broken rib from a wreck, but no one's calling me back. Do I need a lawyer? Well, you've got an actual injury, a broken rib or broken ribs, maybe multiple there.
So a reasonable amount of time, that's so speculative. We look at a lot of car wreck cases. We try a lot of car wreck cases, resolve a lot of car wreck cases. Most of the time, we do not enter negotiations without knowing exactly what the client or patient, what their ultimate treatment is and what their outcome is. Because if you're playing poker, you don't know until you get all 5 of your cards what the value of that injury is. So it's difficult and treacherous to settle that case quick. Let's say the rib, you know, it takes 6 weeks to heal. Did it puncture a lung? Was there a pneumothorax? Was there's, you know, hey, if it heals up, that's great. You can go ahead and make an evaluation, but you want to make sure you finish all treatment and you know exactly what you're dealing with. You could be in trouble.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions.
By Timberlake, League & Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to this station.
If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Will League, Timberlake, League & Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon Doviet, Family Law, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com.
Thanks for all your calls and questions. I can't believe the 30-year anniversary. We're going to keep celebrating for a little while, but 30 years.
Well,
Fun to see old pictures.
Maybe we'll be here another 30. Who knows?
I think so.
That's a long time.
Thank you all for watching for 30 years.
Yes.